Men of Reddit, what do women do that they think is okay but is really creepy? I'm a bald man, as in I shave my head every few days. I used to drive forklift often, and I would have women touch my head all the time, like at least 2 to 3 times a night. My boss touched my shaved head once. We are both adult men. NTA. Get married immediately. He'll also get a raise. Something else will raise. Claiming that being totally crazy is a charming character trait. That's not something to be proud of. Cassie. Stop barking at Quill Cassie. Mother-in-law sitting on my lap bouncing up and down, does that count? I'm sorry, what? His mother-in-law sitting on his lap bouncing up and down. One more time. Say it one more time. Don't stop. His mother-in-law sitting on his lap bouncing up and down. I'm a male nurse. The comments female patients make, especially old ones, gets pretty creepy at times. I'm a landscaper and old women, like generally 60 plus, will always break a touch barrier. I'll be sweating profusely, completely obviously soaked, and they'll slide their hand down my bicep, or completely bump their hand into one of our crotches. One time an old lady was playing damsel in distress, like she couldn't get down a set of steps at a commercial property we were doing, and I ignored her. My boss goes over and walks her to her car. He walked back with a very awkward look on his face and says, dude, she had me by the sea the whole way to her car. I had an old lady full on try to seduce me when we were planting a sapling in her backyard. She made me follow her upstairs to write the check and was like, I bet you've never been seduced by an older woman. This lady was not an older woman, she was an old woman, and thank God my homie came inside and called for me. My mom had a friend who was always calling me handsome and kissing me all over my face and in general smothering me during hugs from ages 7 to 12. I only ever told my mom it made me uncomfortable, and she asked her to not smother me like this in nicer wording, and she was shocked. I felt creeped out. So yeah, things like this. Edit. My mom stopped talking to that woman after that. Mom is good people. I've watched a comedian lately who was talking basically about this situation. Like, how is it okay if a complete stranger can walk up to a small child and just tell them how cute they are and touch them? Only because the stranger in question is a woman. It's still not okay, but somehow, if you do the very same thing as a man, people call the cops at you. Oh, save him for me when he's 18. Insane how they don't hear themselves. Creeps. Touching a guy whenever you feel like, especially in inappropriate ways. Working in a club, this happened multiple times. Hens nights were the absolute worst for this. They would do it unashamedly to raucous laughter and then try to make me drink out of one of their fucking pee straws. Been in a few nightclubs with old women groping me / trying to take my shirt off. Everyone laughed. If the gender was reversed, they would have been thrown out / beaten up / arrested. Dated this girl who needed to know my location and what I was doing all day, which is fine. I understand some people have trust issues and you can work through it. Then she would want me to call her every night, and we had to fall asleep on the phone together because she liked to hear me breathing. If I said I was tired and just wanted to go to bed without calling me, she would not speak to me for days, ignoring all my texts and calls. She would claim that she cares about me more than any other girl. In my eyes, she's seen me like a pet. Whole thing was super creepy. Feel bad for the dude she's talking to now. I was this way with a couple of the guys I tried dating after my super abusive relationship, where he did the same things to me. It ended up being a way I associated care and love with. I feel so bad for those guys and still want to apologize to one 10 years later, but he never had an easily accessible social media and I sure as hell don't want to hunt him down. Moral of the story though, it took a lot of mental and emotional work to get through acting like that. I didn't know how much I was hurting and begging to be cared about until after I realized I was being an awful person. That's some incredible self-awareness. Was there a moment that clicked for you that made you realize you needed to change? Speaking in an exaggerated baby voice while talking to other adults. I always wonder why the F they do that. Lol. I'm a woman. In my defense, I've caught myself talking in a baby-like tone and it's usually an anxious thing. Somehow it's like spewing rehearsed lines or something, and I definitely think it's an anxiety response for me at least. Andy is Sawi. Mayo still not Kalanudru. My daughter's mother always asks our daughter if I'm talking to a girl or if I have a GF. I find it creepy that my married ex is always asking our 6-year-old daughter if I have a GF or dating anyone. Our daughter is a chatterbox, so she is always repeating what her mother asks her. My mother did that when I was younger after I'd spend my weekends with my dad. It's severely affected our relationship. Now that I'm an adult, boundaries between parents and children are important. I saw your comment about how you don't reciprocate and commend you. You're a good parent. Edit to add the responses to this are really telling and more than a bit upsetting. There's a definite difference between knowing who your child is spending time with and trying to use your child to spy/involving your child too much in your adult relationships. There's a right way to do it, and a severely mentally scaring way as evidenced by the comments from adults who live through this behavior. Close bracket. My mum would just openly say bad things about dad/make personal comments. I've made a point of only talking about my daughter's dad, if we have to, or if he comes up in conversation, and then I keep all comments neutral for her sake. Stalking. Yeah, especially how most of them, they are proud of it and call it detective work, and the I found his mum, dad, brother, sister and his cousin once removed. Totally unrelated, but what is the meaning of cousin once removed? Women who touch me. I'm 52 and married and work with 7 women. They think it's okay to touch my shoulder, legs, hands. If I did that to them, I'm pretty sure it would be a different story. I'm not comfortable with being touched. Please stop. No smile. No apologies. Pinching cheeks. Face or ass? Both. At the same time. At the same time. Those Snapchat filters that make their eyes big. Every Snapchat filter. Snapchat. I had a friend who got around 80 dick pics in under a year. Most women could do that in a few days if they used Tinder and give the Snapchat. When asked, I ended up getting 13 one weekend. I know they are gonna send it, but each one looks different and some are strange and weird looking, so I never turn a D-pic down. LMAO. D museum. Are we allowed to talk about serving a bachelorette party in a bar? It's kinda scary. When I was younger I used to be made to do the VIP parties at a club I worked at, usually all women parties and Hindus. If you're a woman on a night out with other women, and you're tempted to grab at the crotch or ass of a guy serving you champagne, just take a second to think about whether that's the right thing to do. I wish reporting that to the police was more socially acceptable. Women and men in service industries put up with so much and harassment rarely gets taken seriously. If you called the cops on a woman for touching a man, the cops would just laugh at you. Depends on the cops. I think our country sheriffs would probably arrest, but no DA is charging that ever. Say save him for me when he turns 18. That's creepy. 4 years ago Beyonce Salange's mom posted a photo of herself with Salange's son. Later in the day she had to edit the caption to tell people Salange's son was 14 because adult women were in the comments making predatory comments. What a bunch of creepy perverts. 40-something-year-old black guy that works out a lot here. Middle-aged to older white women come up and rub my arms all the time. Like, oh, you must work out a lot. Look at your arms. I'm getting bananas in the produce section at the store, and here comes Mildred or Carol out of the blue. Could you imagine the opposite? Me touching up on Gertrude buying celery? Reading all these answers here make one thing very obvious. If it is creepy, if genders are reversed, then it is creepy. Most of the things here boil down to double standards. Exactly. I used to be guilty of a few inappropriate things. Stuff like giggling with my coworker about cute school resource officers, until I started thinking, would this be okay if the genders were reversed? And it's very eye-opening. Edit to clarify, we would do it when other people were around and not just between us privately. It wasn't appropriate. TBH. I feel like giggling over how cute someone is with your friends is generally okay regardless of gender. Maybe that's just me though. Most creepy things to me is stalking and abuse. Worked at a club as a bouncer years ago. My manager was 6 feet 5 inches, probably 300 pounds. His wife was like 5 feet 3 inches. We would stitch and clean him up cause she would beat the heck out of him daily, but he never raised his hand or called the law because he would get in trouble, not her, and he was afraid he would hurt her. We had cops show up one day to arrest him because she hit him with the cast iron skillet and he left. She got mad cause he wouldn't let her keep hitting him with it, so she cut her hand and said he attacked her. Holy yes, I hope he got out. Moving my clothes to get a better look at my tattoos. I mean, my tattoos are dope and I'll show them off to almost anyone who asks. But please ask. Don't just start touching me. Just say who gave you permission to touch me. You're violating my personal space. I bet they'll feel weird and ashamed. Depends. The woman may roll her eyes and say something like, oh, come on. Don't be so shy. Did that once with a girl touching my beard and her friends proceeded to berate me and tell me I should be grateful because I was an ugly FT. How people can actually have this mindset still baffles me. Former bartender here. We take very seriously any complaints from women for the creepy behavior of men towards them when they are trying to enjoy their night out. Any unwanted touching is an absolute no-go. See you later. Out you go. This also applies to hen/bachelorette parties, where groups of women think it's acceptable to grope male staff. Try to force them to kiss them, show their breasts, put their hands down the front of their pants while they are glass collecting, physically assault them. Honestly, I don't know what it is about these kind of parties, but for some reason they think that behavior's acceptable. It isn't. If you would ask for a man to be kicked out of a venue for that behavior, it means it's absolutely not okay for a woman to do it either. This is extremely obvious to everyone, except the women who do it. It's like they feel it's their right, just because it's a hen's party. Like if you want to get handsy, pay a stripper who consents to it. Some girls don't understand that hands to herself means all of my body, not just my penis. After I started hitting the gym, sometimes a girl will just grab a pec and make a weird comment like comparing boob size. For anyone who thinks that means I'm swimming in pee, just remember 99,999% of PPL who will notice or care are teenage boys who want you to be their free coach. Spot me, bro. Not wanting to generalize here, just describing my lived experience. But gaslighting, verbal aggression, the silent treatment and similar forms of emotional abuse under the guise of communication, often following up cruel comments with "I'm just kidding. I didn't know you'd be so sensitive." Baby voice. It really weirds me out when I hear a grown woman talking in what appears to be a baby/little girl voice to another adult. What the F is going on with that? A woman I work with does it to me all the time and it always makes me uncomfortable. She mostly does it while touching/rubbing my leg or arm. She sounds like she needs to learn about personal boundaries. Oh, she absolutely does, and regularly tell her not to touch me like that, but she doesn't listen. Ours is the next step. Touching muscles, even after they've been told you're not okay with it. Touching my bald/trimmed head. Openly discuss secrets told in private, but I trust my friends. Unprovoked grooming advice on my beard/legs. Using small dick comments to insult men or to refer to less manly men. Complimenting/hugging kids without checking with the kid and the parents. Openly discuss secrets told in private, but I trust my friends. This is the most egregious one. Your entire friend group doesn't need to know about what we talk about. You're not venting or figuring out how to deal with it/help out by sharing secrets. You're just being a shitty person. Don't be a dick. Life rule number 1. The heartbreaker all ladies man comments directed at male children. That S is weird. Yes. Due in September, and I got too many honors with I get picked up by ladies all the time. Chick magnet. And mama's new man and other cringy sayings that my son will not be wearing. It's gross. And it sends the wrong message to your son at a very early age. Like when your kid is just being nice and some more and he says, "Ooh, he's such a flirt." What is that? What do you think the kid's gonna get out of that? Also, speaking as an aunt, WTF. I could never imagine saying S like that to my nibblings, or to any other child for that matter. I'd feel so gross. I personally don't quite understand how others behave that way, or how it became so normalized. That sexual harassment is okay. I'm a bouncer and I get my and crotch touched and groped daily, and it's never men. Always women. Some are older, some are younger. Kind of insane how double standard our society is. Justifying bad behavior by having good looks. Forgetting to take birth control, convincing a guy it's okay to not use protection just this one time with the intent to get pregnant. I'm shocked at how many married women do this because they want more children than their partner. It's often laughed about, made to seem like they're the 0.001% birth control fails, or it was God's plan. It's horrific and abusive. When I got divorced, I hooked up with an ex. We hadn't seen each other for 15 years. She knew everything about me, like everything. Where I worked, even like nicknames my mother says to me. She said it was her intuition, but she's obviously been stalking me. My sister-in-law even told me she had been stalking her to find out more things about me. She is religious, no problem, I'm too. But she's religious in a weird way. She was oddly obsessed with martial arts and who would win in a fight. She's a black belt. I'm an Iraq veteran. She was obsessed with me being a veteran. I was only in the army for 5 years, despite the fact I've been an accountant for the last 15 years. She couldn't get her head around the fact that I had changed in 15 years. Also, as a 44-year-old, she kept trying to age me up to her age 51, which constantly annoyed me. In the end I beamed her off, which will be fun, seeing as I'm now working at the same place as her on Monday.